Welcome to this program. Today we are going to discuss about a very important and interesting topic, that is education as a process of socialization. During this session, we are going to discuss about the important aspects of socialization. The main focus point of our discussions will be that we will be discussing about what do we mean by socialization. We will try and understand the difference between the primary and the secondary socialization, and most importantly we will also try to explore the relationship between education and socialization. Now, having said that, if we talk about socialization, if we talk about we as human beings, we all know that we are all social beings. We constantly interact with each other in a social group. So, the society where we live in is nothing but a complex web of social relationship. And how do we maintain these social relationship? With our continuous interactions. And these interactions also make our society very dynamic in nature, which means that as a social group, we are constantly moving ahead and we are constantly developing the social relationships, and the process by which we do this is known as socialization. So, socialization is nothing but it is a social process first of all, and also we need to understand that during this socialization process an individual learns to become a social member of the society. So, if we look at the definition which has been given by Houghton and Hunt, it clearly says that it is a process of internalizing the norms of the group so that the distinct self emerges which is unique to an individual. If I try to explain you the meaning of this particular definition, you would find that socialization is a process by which an individual learns the norms of the group, norms of the society. But these norms of the society, they are internalized in such a way that the individual retains the individual self of the of oneself. So, which means in the process of socialization, we learn to interact with the various members of the group, but then our individual self does not dissolve into, it remains very distinct, very clear. So, this is what when we talk about socialization, and during this process of socialization we would find that this process of socialization starts from the birth of the child and it will keep on going till the death of the child, death of that particular individual, which means that the socialization is a continuous process, it does not stop at one place. So, it also continues from one generation to another, meaning we will pass on the values, the norms, the attitudes, the thinking process from one generation to another. So, therefore, socialization is a continuous process, hence making our society also very, very dynamic in nature. Having said that, socialization also serves the functions of the societies. The main function of the socialization, that it acts as a control system of the society. When we say it acts as a control system, wherein it does not mean that it controls the growth of the individual. It means here it acts as a control in terms of transmitting the cultural values, the attitudes in a certain specific way, so that the values do not go away. And also during this process of socialization, it transforms the individual being into a social being. See, when the child is born in the society, the child is culturally blank. But when the child grows in the society and in the family wherein the child is born, the child thereby imbibes so many social values, so many cultural values, and these by this process the child, the individual child, it transforms into a social being. During the process of socialization, we also learn about the language of culture. We all know that each culture is distinct from the other culture. When I say culture is distinct from the other culture, what does that mean? You would find that each culture will have a separate language, dialects, food, and even the way we eat and dress up. This constitutes our culture. So, during the process of socialization, an individual learns the language of a particular culture where an individual spends the maximum time. And also during the process of socialization, an individual also learns about the various occupational roles which are meant to be done in our lives. For example, you would find that in a potter's community, the children very easily learn how to do the pottery. So, these occupational roles, they directly learn from their immediate family or immediate society members. So, during the process of socialization, they do not have to take an extra effort for learning this. So, therefore, in the process of this socialization, they not only learn about their own culture, they also learn about what roles, occupational roles they are meant to be playing in their lives. So, this is what when we talk about socialization. But having said that, socialization also serves a very important function, another very important function, which is that it helps in the understanding the viewpoint of others in the society, which is also very important. Now, when the society is moving, there is ultimate objective which the society has to maintain, is that society has to maintain the homogeneity in itself. If the society is not homogeneous, if the society is not at the same pace, then there will be constant struggles. But this homogeneity does not mean that each society cannot have people from different cultures. People from different cultures can be a part of one society. For example, in a country like ours, where we have a diverse culture, people are coming from different backgrounds, but still we try to maintain the homogeneity in the society, we live harmoniously in the society. That is the aim of the society. And also it is through the process of socialization this homogeneity is maintained. How? For example, when a child moves from her own immediate family and moves out in a larger society where people from different cultural backgrounds are there, the child is exposed to a different background. So, whereby the child understands that there are other cultures which need to be accepted, which needs to be respected, and so that the child learns to respect the others. During this process of socialization, there are different, you would find there are different types of socialization. You can categorize them into two parts, that is primary socialization and the secondary socialization. As the name suggests, the primary socialization is the first socialization which an individual receives, and this first socialization happens in the family. So, the primary socialization is the one which happens in the family and which actually helps the individual to learn about the family roles, the culture of the family, the background of the family, the norms which are followed in the family. So, that is the primary. But when the child moves on to the other social groups, or for example, when the child goes to the school, the child is now a member of the other social groups which is beyond the family. So, that becomes the secondary source, and the socialization which happens which happens in these social groups which are different from the primary ones is known as secondary socialization. So, therefore, the secondary socialization happens in the schools, the educational institutions, in the peer groups, right. So, therefore, there during the secondary socialization, the child becomes socially competent, more competent, because why? The reason being is that because the child is exposed to different social groups. So, the competency, the level of competency increases, the child develops a generalized view about the society, which the child did not have when she was in the family. In the family, during her primary socialization, what was happening, she was only learning about the immediate rules, the immediate norms of the family. Whereas in the secondary socialization process, this expands, the horizon expands, wherein the child understands the norms of a social group. Eventually, any individual has to become a fruitful member of the society, and in order to become a fruitful member of the society, it is expected that a child socializes well both in the primary as well as in the secondary types of socialization. Now, there are when I talked about the the need of the society to be homogeneous in nature, there are various agents of socializations which are present in the society. You can find there are 5 important agents of socialization. The first being the family. As discussed earlier, it is the primary family is a primary socialization agent, and it helps the child to learn about the roles, the norms of the immediate family. Next important are the peer groups. So, when the children they form peer, they interact with their peers either outside their family. So, what they learn? They learn about to negotiate, to work in a group. So, therefore, the informal learning from the peer group may be very informal in nature, but you cannot undermine the importance of learning from the peer group. The third important part is the religion. An individual, each one of us, we have a different, we follow different religious practices. So, the socialization which is done with the help, because there are various religious followers, there are various religious rules and which we follow. So, therefore, that also acts as an agent of socialization. A very great role is being played by mass media, the print media, the audio media, the video media. We are so exposed to all these medias, and from these media we get to know the wider view of the society. We get to know what are the other society beyond our country. So, there the better accommodation takes place. So, that is another important agent of socialization. And the last but not the least, the important one is the educational institutions. As I have been stressing upon, these educational institutions does play a very, very important role in terms of socializing the individual. We will discuss about the role of education and how it helps in socialization in the later part of our discussion. Now, when I said that these educational institutions, here I am referring educational institution to be a school, but it can be a school, it can be a college, it can be a university, any educational institution. There is a close relationship between an educational institution and individual. As I said that the socialization, during the process of socialization, the individual transforms from an individual being to a social being. And this transformation, the major responsibility of this transformation is on the school, the educational institution. So, therefore, there is a very, very close relationship which both of them have. So, we need to also maintain a very delicate balance between the two, because during the process of socialization, we also need to maintain the individuality of the person. Now, having said that, there is a very, very important explanation highlighting the importance of education, which has been given by Durkheim, that education is the influence exercised by the adult generation on those that are not yet ready for the social life. It is an object to arouse and to develop in the child a certain number of physical, intellectual and moral traits that are demanded of him by the society. And more briefly, education is a socialization of the young generation. So, here Durkheim has stressed upon that whatever education we give to the child in the school, in the educational institution, it is just not limited to the development of one aspect of the personality. It helps in developing the physical, the cognitive, the moral, that means the entire personality of the individual. So, therefore, I say that the educational institution play a very, very important role when I talk about socialization. Let us understand how. Britt in his explanation about the various dimensions of socialization in the educational institution, explained the dimension of socialization in terms of conformity. Now, Britt proposed 3 levels of conformity which a child is supposed to be following. The first is the behavioral conformity. So, when a child enters an educational institution, a child is expected to behave in a particular manner, and those are not explicit rules and regulation. They are something which a child has to imbibe when the child enters into a educational institution. For example, taking the tests, or raising the hand while asking the question, or be in a line to fill up a water bottle. These kind of behaviors, they are very different from what the child has learnt in her family, because a child is not expected to raise a hand to ask a question in a family, but it is expected to be there in an educational institution. So, these are behavioral conformity which an individual has to maintain, and they are not written rules, they are not explicit rule, and but a child is expected to conform or maintain those rules, and through this what a child learns is to obey the authority, which is the important aspect of socialization, because when the child moves out in the society at the large, the child should be able to conform to the rules of the authority which are there in the larger society, of course the accepted rules only. The next important part is the moral conformity. A child is expected to understand what is right and what is wrong. So, educational institutions, the teachers of the schools, they help the child to understand about what are correct as per the societal norms and the rules of the society, and the child is able to learn what is right and wrong, and also weigh the consequences of if the child takes up a wrong act. So, therefore, an educational institution helps in maintaining the moral conformity, and also it helps in maintaining the cultural conformity, that is the cultural norms and the rules of the society. There are various, you would find in educational institution, we try to perform various cultural events in the schools and the colleges, and which helps them to understand the diversity of the culture, the different types of culture, and also these activity help them to adapt and to adjust to the different cultural rules of the society. So, therefore, in an educational institution, these dimensions, these are different dimensions which we see of the socialization, which play a very important role. Now, apart from that, Britt also went ahead in terms of explaining the various zones of socialization. You can see these 3 concentric rings. According to Britt, these concentric rings, they are made up of the inner component, that is known as the core of the zone of the socialization. These are basically embedded practices, again not the implicit practices. These are those practices with which a child is expected to follow. As I said earlier, for example, raising hand or standing in a queue for a water. So these are embedded ones. The children are not expected, they are not written rules, but these are the things which children are expected to do. Another thing, the 2 outer rings, they belong to the moral instruction. See, the inner ring, it refers to the implicit moral instruction, which is not implicit, explicit moral instruction, that is written. So, which is actually being taught by the teachers by reading out the moral stories to them and telling children what is right and what is wrong. And it is done primarily in the very small classes during at the elementary level. And the outer ring consists of more implicit moral instructions, which are actually, they are not written, but they are there in the curriculum as the hidden curriculum, and children are expected to learn from them. For example, respecting the different children with different needs. They are not written somewhere, but their children are expected to do that. Now, during these times when children are socializing with each other from one level to another, this is one thing is common, there is a dynamic interchange of the thoughts and ideas. So, as a teacher, what you are expected to do is that you have to give them enough space to the teachers, so that this dynamism in terms of exchanging the thoughts and ideas, it is maintained, and you must adopt those curricular pedagogies which help children to work in groups, because when the children will work in group, they will understand the importance of negotiation, they will understand the importance to follow the group norms and the group rules. Hence, they will become better group members, and which is actually the main objective of the socialization. So, having said that, it is quite understood that education plays a very important role in terms of socializing the child, and as teachers your role becomes even more greater, because you have to give child opportunity to socialize in a group. With this, I thank you very much.